Hey friends, welcome to Season 7 of the Let's Get Real podcast. I'm Justin.
And I'm Trisha.
Every week, we have honest conversations about life, love, and leadership without the pressure to pretend.
Whether you're in a great season or a messy one, this space is for grace and truth and real connection.
And this season, we're diving into some powerful conversations with each other, with friends, and with leaders who are making a difference by leading from a place of authenticity.
So whether you're listening in the car, out on a walk, maybe just hiding in your pantry for a little peace and quiet, this podcast is for you.
Let's dive into Season 7 and get real.
Today's guest is Kara Stout. She is a writer, she's a wife, and a newly adopted mama living in Los Angeles, California. And Kara writes prayers and devotionals on her social media and has recently released her first devotional that we'll talk about in the podcast. Kara has a bachelor's degree in psychology from Arizona State University and her master's degree in counseling from Loyola University, Chicago. And after walking through a personal medical crisis and then the loss of her parents to cancer, her life radically changed. And her complete dependency on God for strength and peace became a non-negotiable in her life. Her hope is to encourage others in her faith, and I believe that you are going to be encouraged by her story. Well, Kara, thank you so much for joining the Let's Get Real podcast. As we were chatting before we even started recording, I was like, oh my gosh, there are so many conversations I want to have with you today. But first and foremost, congratulations on your book. This is a devotional called The Untroubled Heart, which the subtitle, it was like, I think everybody who is going to listen or watch this podcast is going to be like, sure, that relates to me. Calming anxiety and finding God's purpose. So we're excited to have the conversation with you today about just that. So thank you for joining us.
Yes, thank you. I'm so excited to talk with you both.
Well, hey, before we dive in, we'd love just to hear, beyond just kind of the title of your book and your name, just a little bit about you, your background. I know you're married. Just tell us a little bit about you.
Yeah, so, okay, let's think. Well, yeah, so married, we just had our 15th year wedding anniversary last month. So 15 years. And let's see, so we met in Chicago. We both used to live in Chicago, but originally I'm from Arizona. But now we live in Los Angeles. So we've been here about 8 years. We have a little girl named Nora, and she's going to be 2 years old next week. We were blessed with her through adoption. And I'm a writer, and as you mentioned, I have my first book, which is devotional, An Untroubled Heart. And yeah, I started writing several years ago, and I just wanted to speak about God's goodness through just some of the trials and suffering that I had walked through, and that's really then how the book came about as well. So, yeah.
I am an 80s kid, and when being a kid in the 80s, especially as a girl, diaries were a big thing, and they came with like this big clip that you would lock, but it unintentionally became this really beautiful way of journaling that I had no idea at the time how much that connected to my faith. And something that caught my eye just in your book, in your story, that we would love to hear more about is really like, this book is a conglomeration of your life's journey. For you, have you always been a journaler, or did that kind of come out of your own story of like, man, life is hard and I need a safe place to just share my feelings or even connect with God?
I love that question. Yeah, so I did journal. Now that I love that you brought this up about journaling when we were little. And I did. And then I stopped for several years. I would say probably high school, because then, with high school and homework and stuff. So I don't really remember writing that much journaling. And then I have enjoyed writing through the years, but it was usually schoolwork writing that happened. And then I went to graduate school, and there was like paperwork or papers to write for that. And then, yeah, I feel like the love for writing came back really about, I know the time frame because it was during my mom's cancer journey, and that was about 6 years ago. And so I just started writing because I was seeing so much of God's goodness in the middle of this season with her. I mean, there was heartbreak and suffering, but also just overwhelming peace and joy. And I was like, I can't not write about this. And so that's really how the love of writing came back. And then it was like a way to heal for my own heart and process, but also God really put on my heart his daughters, and that's like for the book, it's for women, who are going through just different trials, and sharing with them what I feel God taught me and what he's actually continuing to teach me on how do we really truly rely on him to be our peace. Because I feel like a lot of us know, and we can move in that, and then all of a sudden we're like, wait, we're anxious again, we're worried again, let me get back to what I know of how do I go to God to be my peace.
So good. I was talking to Trish last night. I opened up a news app and immediately like a flood of like anxiety just washed over me. And so I think we all are experiencing in different ways, depending on our life experience and, kind of our perspective, we're experiencing like external trouble, right? Where we watch the news or we read get on the internet for 10 seconds and you're overcome with that. But then there's also this internal, you mentioned, your mom's cancer journey. All of us have this trouble that comes from within too. How have you learned, through this process of putting this devotional together? I love what you said is like noticing God's goodness in the midst of that. It feels like more of a discipline than it is just like an epiphany, right? Like it's almost like you have to notice it. How have you kind of shifted your perspective from like recognizing all the external stuff that could trouble our heart, but then choosing an untroubled heart?
Yeah. Well, I love that you brought that up, because it's definitely, I feel like anxiety can come from a variety of sources, right? Yeah. Like the world, the news. And I know this is talked about, or like I've seen people talk about it, mention it, before on social media, how, I don't know, X amount of years ago, we didn't have access to all of this information, right? All of the things that are going on in the news, like everywhere. So it was just like all of this information is being thrown at us. I feel like a lot in the world, and then in our country, and then in our city. So it's like big and then goes small. And then also, like you mentioned, in our personal lives. So for me, I feel like I really have to put boundaries on what I consume. And I feel like the Holy Spirit really convicts me, or helps me recognize, like, you're on too long. Like let's pull back, and then help me with my self-control, the fruit of the Spirit, self-control. And I love that. And his conviction is so good, right? When he convicts us, it's out of love. And so I feel like when I sense that I need to put boundaries in place for the time on my phone or the news. And that has been really helpful. And then reading God's word, for sure. That, I want to say, when you mentioned discipline, during my mom's cancer journey, I was reading through the New Testament in 100 days. I had put together this plan. And I didn't know she would be passing away within those 100 days, but I read his word every day. I didn't miss it. And I didn't want to miss it. And every day it just gave me strength. And so I read it, on the day she passed away, the next day after, when I had to wake up without her here, that was that practice that really brought me a lot of peace and perspective on this life is a vapor. And then in the meantime, we have a good God who's with us, while we wait for eternity and heaven. And so I feel like those are my disciplines.
I love that. One of the things that I was fascinated with you particularly is just your in the mode of education of, your undergrad being in psychology and then a master's in counseling. And then diving into God's word, you are like perfectly positioned to understand the nuances. I say all the time, what I love about psychology is that just like God designed our physical bodies, he designed our brain, and understanding that on a psychological perspective is just another aspect of who God is. It's a beautiful thing. But oftentimes what I have found in my own journey with people that are struggling with loss or in the midst of it is kind of the duality of feeling like it's either or. I can either be sad and grieve, or I have to be like faith, like an oak tree, and God's got me. What would you say to the person who is desperate to understand how to hold space for both of those without canceling them out, but acknowledging they're both there?
This is such a good topic and necessary, because if we look through the Bible and different stories, like David, his faith was so evident even when he was crying out and needing to trust God, in his sorrow and his grief. And so I feel like a good thing to maybe see it as is when we go to God with the sorrow, the sadness, the feelings, when we do feel anxious, because life can be stressful and hard. But our faith is shown when we are going to God, because we're trusting him, right? We're trusting him with the pain, with the questions. And I think that shows our faith. I think it shows our faith because we're trusting him like, Lord, I can't figure this out. I can't soothe, my heart that is grieving and broken, but you can. And so I'm going to keep going to you. And that's faith. That's the faith that I see throughout the Bible. And I feel like that's the faith I've seen when people are going through hard things and they're gripping on to God because they're having faith and trusting that he's the one who really is the remedy for the troubles of our heart, So definitely, like you said, we can and we should hold on to both, because if we don't, if we're sad or grieving and we're not going to God, then we're depending on ourselves. And that's not faith.
Yeah. One of the things that I appreciate about your story, and we've kind of touched on a little bit, but you write from a deep well, in that, you had an artery dissection, you struggled financially, you were struggling with infertility, you'd already lost your dad, and then your mom gets cancer. So there's all of these, you're not writing from a place of, rainbows and unicorns. It's from a really deep place of loss and sorrow and heartache. How did you choose to pursue finding hope in your faith and not despair and pessimism, or just feeling so defeated that, it's like God is doing this to me, rather than I can find the goodness of God in this?
Yeah. So I think, okay, when you were speaking, a few things came to mind. Hopefully I can remember them. I feel like the first for me was the example of my mom. Like, she was such a strong woman of faith. And so she taught me a lot about joy in the suffering. And so it was just this witness, I just witnessed this through different things in her life, right? Like, she walked through her own type of suffering that I knew, I knew about growing up, and her loss and the grief she had experienced in her life. And then through her cancer journey, it was like she completely trusted on Jesus. So again, that was this other huge example to me of how do we trust in God through grief and suffering. And then also, with like, how do you trust him when we're dying? I mean, she taught me this huge lesson. And so there was so much hope that I felt in that, of the truth of eternity. Like, it hurts and it's hard. I mean, even today, like I have a daughter, and it's so hard without my mom. Like, the reality is I grieve still. And at the same time, I have that hope. I have that hope that I will see her again. And God gives me that joy of heaven. And at the same time, I'm honest, like, I wish that she was here. Like, to be a grandmother, and that's hard. That's painful. But I remember her as that example. And now I can't remember what the other thing was, but
I
if it
I
comes
do
to
love though that you tapped into something that when it comes to grief that becomes difficult is
Mhm.
unexpected new grief of old loss.
That's right.
It's like, oh, well, I've never had a 2-year-old before, and so these new experiences are making like creating these beautiful memories, but it's also making me experience unexpected grief of like, gosh, I wish my mom was here. And so I appreciate your honesty in that and helping people understand that it's a journey, but grief is the gift that helps us acknowledge how we feel and then come to a place of exception or acceptance. But tell us a little bit about, so you've been on this journey with your mom, the loss of your dad, and I know some people are probably listening her in the midst of it. We've shared on the podcast, my dad passed away in January of this year, and
Oh, I'm sorry.
thank you. But it was being in ministry. I had this idea that I love Jesus, and I have sat by so many bedsides that I'm like, I'm going to be prepared for this, and I was utterly shocked at how I wasn't ready, and then life is still happening. And so you've experienced this with your parents, and then in the background is struggling with infertility, and then your precious baby you said was your miracle, your blessing. Tell us a little bit about your adoption story.
Yeah. Well, so, it's interesting too. I want to say I really was prayerful, like, God, if I can, you know, um, become pregnant before my mom passes away, like that was a prayer and it wasn't answered. But now I see really, like the timing, God doesn't always show us why, right? Like, I think it's okay to say, God, why? But, not always expecting like him to make a clear answer, but sometimes it's really sweet. I feel like when he shows us why. And I feel like he showed me even before I had a daughter that if I had had a child, really probably at any age, during my mom's cancer journey, I would not have been able to be there with my mom like I was. And that was a tremendous gift. Like, this season with her was one of the most precious years of my entire life. Like, taking care of her for that year. It was truly incredible for so many reasons, and an honor to take care of my mom. And that would have been so hard to be split of like, I had to get home to. So I thought about that after, but I didn't have a child. Now when I have a child, I'm like, oh, wow, that would have been so hard because we lived so I'm in LA and she was in Dallas. So I was flying back and forth and staying with my mom like 5 to 6 weeks at a time. And then I'd come home to be with Michael for like a week, because it was good to see him. And it was hard sometimes to readjust, like, hey, I haven't seen you in 5 to 6 weeks. But anyway, so all that to say is that season, I feel like there was a piece of an answer when I was wondering, why all these years, like we waited for children, And so I think that's a part of the answer, or at least something God revealed I was so grateful for, actually. So anyway, yeah, so we always wanted to adopt. My husband is adopted, but we thought we were going to conceive first, and that didn't happen. And so after 7 years of infertility, we were like, okay, let's pursue the adoption process. And that was a 3-year journey. And that was hard. We had an adoption fall through. I mentioned that a little bit in the book. But again, sometimes we don't understand why God allows some of these things and the pain, but really it does help refine us in a lot of ways and sanctify us and grow us. But now I look at Nora and I'm like, yeah, this is our daughter. So if we had to go through that adoption, that it just wasn't the right fit according to God's will, that's okay, But we took time after to heal. So we took, I don't even know, several months to heal after that adoption. And then I felt my heart like, okay, you're ready. And so then we started back. And then what is sweet is we talked to Nora's birth mother on our wedding anniversary, like the exact day of our wedding anniversary. in 2023. And then Nora was born that next month in August. And so we flew out, and we love her birth mom. We have an open adoption, and like, I'm all for that relationship, however the birth mom wants it, and Nora, for their relationship.
That's so cool.
So yeah.
One of the things I think people struggle with in the relationship with God is when you feel that grief, that uncertainty, the lack of understanding of God's timing.
Yes.
How can we approach God authentically and honestly in those times and be able to trust him with some of those difficult things that may not have answers on this side of heaven? How have you learned to do that?
That is a good question.
Well, I feel like you answer that in your book.
That's why you should go get the book.
Like the one you say, I don't know what day is this, on day 18.
Trish is going to answer that question for you with your
I
own
am.
words.
I'm like, you've already answered it. You said,
I love it.
Waiting on God is not passive. It's continually going to him in prayer, seeking him and pursuing his heart.
That's right.
I thought that was interesting, because I can be really, I don't think anyone in my sphere would call me self-centered, but I can do that in my prayer life. Like, I'm going to go to you. I'm going to be continually going to him. It's me. Yeah. I'm going to him, and I'm doing the work, and I'm pursuing. But you say his heart, like, it stood out to me to go, ooh, like, am I leaving room for what he is going to say rather than what I want him to say?
That's right. I love that.
So,
yes.
Great answer, Kara, through Trisha.
Yes. That was perfect. Yes. Yeah.
I could go on and on. When I was like to continue on my little journaling journey, I don't know where I found it, but I meant to grab it for this podcast. Yeah. But I found this little black book, which is funny because it's usually like code word for a different type of book. But it literally was this little black leather bound book called The Promises of God. And
yes, I have that.
Do you have it?
But I think so. Is it like small?
Yes,
and
it's
like
teeny tiny. Yes.
My mom got that for me, actually.
I love
that you're mentioning
I wish I would have grabbed it. If you were to read mine, I started mine in like when I was in middle school. And so I would read it, and then I would be like, Jimmy hurt my feelings so bad because he broke up with me, or like these crazy, you know. Yeah. But it's just interesting. I had no idea that either people ask, I'm so over, the devotional, or people saying just pray. And I know it can feel really cliche, but in your devotional, like the 30 days, that habitual looking to his heart, like when you were writing it, like, why 30 days? Why not, from what you've been, you could have written one for like, hey, how, for the next 10 years, let me tell you what I've been through. What is the nuance that you carry people through in the devotional over the 30 days? What's the hope and desire that you want them to walk away from after experiencing the devotional?
Yeah. I know. So it was hard to kind of land, I guess, on the days, but I really wanted to do the evening portion. So it's the morning and the evening. Like, I had such a heart for that. And actually, when I first pitched my book proposal, it was an evening devotional, like at first. And then just discussing with publishers, then they felt like the need for the morning. And so I was like, well, I really want the evening. So can we please work? And they were totally like open for that. Because I just had this strong heart for the evening portion, because I really think it's, even today, like, I wrote it and I still have to try to be like, I feel like morning is an easier time for us, for many of us. I don't know everybody, to go to God and, do a study or a devotional. And then at night, we don't always. I think it's a missed opportunity of spending, again, intentional time with God. And so that was a huge heart behind the book is bookending our days. So going to God in the morning and then also in the evening. And so then the real hope is that rhythm would move beyond the 30 days.
So
and
good.
so hopefully the 30 days will help with the habit, of doing that. And also it was fun to, pair the days. So like have them fit together as like a puzzle. Like most of them had like this theme, that would fit. Um, and so that was fun for me. Sometimes were challenging, like how do
Sure.
I, but it was a joy to, work that out. So
It's
yeah,
making
so
me laugh that like evening
yeah.
is scandalous. Oh my gosh, how can you do a devotional in the evening? Which I love that. But at the same time, to Justin's point, he's like, he turned to me, which is so not him. It's usually me
Yeah.
who's anxious at night. I start thinking things. So it's
Yes,
like,
that's right, at night.
then Justin's like, did you see the news? I'm like, who are you right now?
Well, she was looking at me like with a smirk on her face. I'm like, I just shared like a real deep part of my heart with you,
Oh,
and you're like smirking at me like a sarcastic teenager. Like, what is
I
going
know,
on
I'm
right now?
sorry. I
I'm like, do you not
publicly
want to hear
apologize
about
to
the
you.
inner parts of my soul or what?
oh.
So I just leaned over, turned
I love
on,
that.
turned off the light, and I'm like, I'll just take this to the Lord since you don't want to hear about it, but whatever.
Oh.
Well,
So
I
I
should have
hope,
brought the
you know,
book
as you
upstairs with me and just been like,
exactly.
hey, let me read to you day 18, and
Yeah.
you would have been fine.
It's a shocking thing
Right.
to know that you pitch something to the publisher and then they want twice as much out of you as you actually pitch. So you had to write a morning and an evening devotional.
Yeah. Well, actually, at first I was pitching like 100-day evening devotional.
Oh wow.
So yeah. So at first I was going to do 100 days evening, and then we figured because then it's 60 total entries, because
Yeah.
it's twice. Yeah. But even that I played around with, and I was like, I didn't know if it should be more days, but then with the publisher, we landed on, okay, 30 days. Cause it's again 2 a day, like
Yeah.
hopefully is
It
people
builds a
will do
rhythm
that.
and habit.
Yes.
Well, and
Yeah.
that
And then
100
people
days
will.
though had so much significance because that was your journey with your mom. So I
Yeah.
could see where that could be really,
Yeah.
very
Yeah.
sentimental as well. One of the things I know we're running a little low on time, but one
Okay.
of the things you
Yeah.
talk about in the book is just how we experience God in nature. I read a book several years ago called Sacred Pathways by Gary Thomas. And he talks
Okay.
about how each of us are wired to experience God through different pathways, almost like
Oh,
spiritual
wow.
gifts that we have that are different. We also have different ways to connect with God. But I really appreciate your, kind of pointing to nature as a way to experience God and God's presence and God's comfort and joy. Talk a little bit about that and how important nature is to our
Mhm.
spiritual soul, our spiritual journey.
I love that. Okay, so that's so cool about the different ways people can connect with God or experience Him, I think is
Yeah,
what
I
you said.
think he I
Yeah,
think he identifies 9 different pathways in the book.
pathways. That is so cool. Yeah, I want to see what they all are. But yes, nature. I maybe even since I was little, um, I just feel like when we see nature, it's like it's so obvious the evidence of God. Like I just cannot understand how anybody would think it's just random or arbitrary. Like it's just so perfect and so all the varieties of birds and just everything. Um the flowers and just everything I think just points to his majesty and his beauty and his creativity. And so, yeah, I definitely write about that in the book too. Yeah.
Well, I want to thank you so much for just not only your time, but just it's easy, especially as authors, for people
Mm-hmm.
who aren't writers to almost feel like there's a bookend because it is a book of start to finish. But
Right.
oftentimes books are, very large chapters of our life when we write from our life experience. And so we just appreciate you and appreciate that the Let's Get Real podcast. We say we have, real life conversations about life and love and leadership.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of what we talk about is usually through paths of brokenness or mistakes and the human experience, that we're all broken in our own way. But it was beautiful and refreshing to hear you experience just life, like when life happens, not something that you chose or decisions you made. It just, life came at you and you made the decision to love Jesus through it. And so we just want to bless you and thank you for, you know, your work and for sharing it with the world. And so for those listening, we want to encourage you to get the book, 30 Days. It is for women, but I'm just saying, Justin may have changed that today. So
Yes.
Kara, before we go, Kara, tell everybody where they can find you online.
Yes. Well, and I know it is funny. It's really only a few places in there where I say like daughters or so. You know, men could definitely, you know,
support their
read
wives
it.
and read it with them.
Yes. I actually have a friend. She and her husband read it together, or she reads it, I think, and out loud. And
that's awesome.
But so where you said where they can find it?
Yeah, where they can find you, like Instagram.
Yeah.
You have a website, all that.
Okay, great. Yes. So I do have a website. It's karastout.com. And on there, it has the links to where you can purchase the book. Amazon, it's on Amazon, and then like Barnes and Noble, Target. But there are those links on the website if that can be an easy way to find it. And I'm on social media under Sincerely by Kara. And I share prayers on there too. And like encouragement and Bible reading plans. I still continue doing those because that's so helpful for me.
That's great. Yeah. That's great. Well, again, thank you so much for your time. And I hope the book goes bananas in all the right way. And some maybe, you know, angsty teenager like I was in the 90s finds your book and it becomes their little black book, but just the little blue book. And so thank you again.
Yes. Thank you both so much. Thank you.
Thanks so much for joining us for another honest conversation. We hope that something in today's episode encouraged you, maybe even challenged you.
Our heart is to help you live with more connection, more purpose, and really more authenticity in every aspect of your life.
If this episode meant something to you, would you do us a favor? Would you leave a review wherever you listen to the podcast? It helps more people find these conversations.
Or better yet, share it with a friend. Shoot somebody a text message today. Let them know what you're listening to, because you never know how God might use that to encourage somebody else.
We'll see you next time right here on the Let's Get Real podcast.